Amazon is shutting down its virtual healthcare service. Amazon is shutting down the hybrid virtual in-home care service it's spent years developing. It's a surprising move that underscores the challenges Amazon faces as it moves into healthcare. Senior Vice President of Amazon Health Services, Neil Lindsay, said in an email sent to staff that Amazon Care will end by December 31st. Amazon Care launched in 2019 for Seattle-based Amazon's Washington state employees. That served as a testing ground for Amazon Care before the company rolled it out nationally last year to include workers in all 50 states. It was also offered to private employers nationwide. Amazon says it determined it wasn't the right long-term solution for customers. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Scientists say they've discovered more evidence that a 7-million-year-old skull they discovered 20 years ago in Africa belonged to a creature who walked upright and was our earliest known ancestor. I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now your WCPT 820 Chicago traffic update.
Good morning. I-80 westbound traffic is stop and go from Maple to be.
Hi, Ms. Jackson. The passenger's up.
Okay, thank you.
Fire blocking
Hi,
the right lane.
Darius.
Report of a ramp crash heading from 53.
Hey, hon, send me your daughter's address, okay?
I-90, but the ramp is open. We're not seeing heavy congestion there. At Hanover Park, there's a collision. Lake Street at Walnut. Inbound Ryan Expressway traffic's very slow moving, approaching 87th. The crash just cleared. This was a multi-vehicle incident.
Okay.
Delays are mainly on the inbound.
How's Dasha doing? I know she's glad to be back at school.
Trip time is about an hour.
Oh, yeah, we could go back.
94 to the Ryan. I-57 also heavily affected. It takes 36
well, just send me her
minutes to
address,
get to
okay?
The merge. That's traffic. I'm Jim Alamonte.
Okay. Thank
Remember
you,
when
hon.
you get to work to hop over to WCPT820.com or the TuneIn Radio app and stream The Stephanie Miller Show. Weekdays 8 to 11 a.m. on Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
This is Congressman Mike Quigley. The Supreme Court decision.
All right, we have 1 minute.
Lost lives. Overturning Roe versus Wade doesn't mean there won't be abortions. It just.
We have 1 minute. Probably
Thank you
about
so
45 now.
Be safe. This shameful decision is a stark reminder that Congress must act to protect the rights of all Americans, including equal marriage and equal access to birth control. And it doesn't end with abortion rights. Gun violence is a tragic epidemic in America. The Highland Park shooter should not have been able to purchase a weapon of war, period. I voted for a ban on the sale of assault weapons to make sure this never happens again. No civilian needs to have access to these military firearms. The time to act is now. Go to quigleyforcongress.com for more information.
Paid for by.
All right, 10 seconds.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Quigley, and I
Everybody,
approve
let's
this
have a great
message.
show. God bless us and God help us. Let the words of our mouth and
This is
meditations of our
WCPT
hearts
820,
be acceptable in thy sight.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am free.
Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Thursday, August 25th, 2022. I am Santita Jackson. It's a joy to be with you today as we have some really compelling topics to talk about today on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Wow, everybody. Did you know that slavery is still on the books in the United States? There are several states that will have the abolition of slavery on the books in November. Yeah, I came across that story yesterday. I knew that tucked into the amendment to the Constitution that freed us from slavery, and not just Black people, it freed everybody from slavery. Well, the fact is, if you go to jail, you become a slave again, essentially. That languaging has not been changed in many states across the country. So many states are trying to amend that, but they all have not. And then, of course, student loan forgiveness, student loan debt forgiveness. With the University of Chicago, NYU, and other universities all across the country that have tuition for undergrad starting at $100,000 a year. Who can afford to do that? And let us be very clear. When you go to the University of Chicago, NYU, Harvard, Yale, all these schools, you make connections. That's the benefit of going to schools like that, because it puts you in an elite space. So we're going to talk about that because increasingly access to the American dream is out of reach. Well, it was never within reach for most people. Let's keep it 100, okay? So then we're going to be talking about the 20 million Americans who are facing utility shutoffs. There is a woman in Detroit, I just read her story. She looked up and she saw a portion, a big chunk, 25% of her check had been garnished because the utility companies had the right to go in and take their money from her. I'll talk about that with Dr. Maxwell. So let's get right to it. Everybody, today, 80 degrees will be the high and showers. And I can look out my window right now and it is very, very dark, very gray. Oh my gosh. And in Minneapolis, St. Paul, partly cloudy, so you'll have more visibility than I do today. The Dow closed up 59 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 50 points, and the S&P 500 closed up 12 points. In Major League Baseball, next year, something historic is going to happen. The American League and the National League will be playing each other for three-game stretches throughout the season. Now, when I was growing up, as many of you, you did not have these interleague games until the playoffs. Well, until the World Series. No. Now that's going to be happening throughout the baseball season. Good for them. The Chicago White Sox were triumphant yesterday over the Orioles, 5-3. The Cubs, 7-1 over the Cardinals. Thank heavens. And the Astros, well, they bested the Twins. And of course, the WNBA Sky, well, they're resting a bit as they are 2-1 in the WNBA playoffs. President Biden announces debt forgiveness for student loan borrowers. The question today for us is it a dream fulfilled or a dream deferred? President Biden on yesterday announced student loan relief for millions of borrowers in the United States, in addition to extending the existing payment pause. Borrowers who make less than $125,000 a year are eligible for up to $20,000 in student loan forgiveness if they received Pell Grants, which are given to students from low and middle income families. Individuals who make less than $125,000 a year but did not receive Pell Grants are eligible for $10,000 in loan forgiveness. So we're going to be talking about that. Are you eligible? What do you think about this? What about people who just finished paying off their loans? I think that the media are trying to play people off against each other, because now more and more people are saying progressives are pushing for tuition-free college. Call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278, and let us know what you think. Should we have tuition-free college? Should the president go a step further? The fact is he's gone further than anyone else, but the fact is we have a long way to go, everybody. The Kobe Bryant crash photos. Praying for that family today. A federal jury awarded $16 million to his widow, Vanessa Bryant, and $15 million to her co-plaintiff, Christopher Chester. Both of them lost their spouses and children in this tragic crash a couple years ago, January of 2020. It's hard to believe it's been 2 years. Well, it turns out that the first responders, many of them took pictures of the dead. Not just of the crash scene, but of the dead. In fact, they would pass them around in public spaces to show folks that they had been there. Indeed, what's painful to see is that Kobe Bryant actually was decapitated in that crash, but they showed those photos anyway. And so, of course, Mrs. Bryant said, I don't want to bump into these photos. I don't want my children to bump into these photos. I don't want anyone to bump into these photos. So she sued and she won. She was awarded $16 million in damages. Chris Chester, $15 million in damages. But can they really get any relief, everybody? The lawsuit said that the LA County deputies and firefighters took photos of the helicopter wreckage, but of the victims, everybody, of the victims. God bless them. God bless them. And praying for them today, everybody. The Uvalde School Board voted unanimously yesterday to immediately terminate the contract of District Police Pete Arredondo 3 months after a gunman killed 19 children and 2 teachers at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. Arredondo has come under intense public scrutiny over the law enforcement response to the May 24th massacre. Remember, he said that he was not going to really talk about this until the parents stopped grieving? Oh, well, this has been America's deadliest school shooting since 2012. And he was a man who was on the rise politically, but that has been thwarted by his response to this. A number of restrictive state abortion laws, including so-called trigger laws, are set to take effect this week, putting access to abortion further out of reach for millions of women as Republican-led states rush to limit the procedure following the Supreme Court's reversal of Roe v. Wade. Trigger laws in 3 states, Idaho, Tennessee, and Texas, will take effect today, banning abortions in their respective states with few exceptions. On Friday, North Dakota's trigger law that bans abortions in most circumstances is set to take effect. Indeed, in the Midwest, Illinois is standing almost alone as a safe harbor state. What kind of burden will that present on the system here in the state of Illinois? We will see. People who cannot get abortions in our surrounding states are coming here. What's going to happen, everybody? Let's talk about it, everybody. Starbucks, everyone was celebrating the unionization of their workers. Well, guess what? Illegally, they withheld wages and benefits from thousands of unionized baristas, according to the National Labor Relations Board, alleged in a complaint yesterday. The complaint arrives during a campaign by the coffee chain and its interim CEO, Howard Schultz, to tamp down unionization efforts at its stores around the United States. More than 230 locations have joined the Starbucks Workers United Union since 2021, driving a surge in unionization nationwide. Well, but they illegally withheld their raises from these people who unionize. Those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Let's get to some good news from Pastor Darius Brooks as we're looking at 20 million people in the United States, at least. We're not even talking about people who already don't have access to their utilities. 20 million more Americans will not have access to their utilities as we go into the cold months. What do you think about that? Well, he's seeing evidence of this at his church at Grace Central in Westchester, Illinois, as he is giving out food throughout the week, and the numbers continue to grow. How can we come and get a crust of bread and such, as Danny Bell Hall, the great psalmist, used to sing when we were children? Darius Brooks. Pastor Brooks, how can we, little becomes much when you place it in the master's hand. What is the address of your church, and what days and times do you give away this food?
Santita Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, every Tuesday from 5 till 7 for the public. And then Wednesday, we've created an idea for the seniors so they won't be out in the evening from noon till 2. Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, right off of 290 and Manheim. And you know that Danny Bell song is one of my favorites, girl.
I need to sing that one. When you place it in the master's hand, we have to learn that and do that together. Absolutely. So what is the good news today? We do need it.
Listen, well, guess what? It's always, the good news is always in the Word of God. Studying and reading it is the key. Santita, 1 John 2:17 says, the world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. And Santita, I want to use for thought today the word versus the world's direction. The word versus the world's direction. Santita, we were made for something. God has built you and me and those that are in him to fulfill our calling and his purpose. There is a glory that you may lean into just by simply being you. As a believer, I'm going someplace with this. In our culture, someone said, it's so much confusion. Santita, but how? Watch this. As a believer, this is what we do and believe. We study the word of who we trust and believe. not a criticism, just an observation. Ain't hating on nobody and ain't scared of nobody. As do atheists don't believe in God or a God. They do what they believe. As whoever believe in Buddha or whatever you believe in, people believe in what they believe. The believer, for the word of God, the word says, in him, his word, we move, live, and have our being. As a believer, God's word helps you pursue the things that matters most. First, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not to your own understanding, and in all your ways acknowledge me, and I'll direct your path. In the world with trouble comes a sense of paralysis. You talked about slavery just a second ago. In the world, student loan debt. God's word is to be structured internally and to be expressed externally. Santita, in the word versus the world, the believer knows that the only way adversity can take us down is on our knees. As a believer, hope and healing are not the only thing that's available to us, but crazy, amazing direction. Santita, when one argues to win without God, they miss the joy of communicating to understand, I am the Lord thy God, and thou shalt not have no other gods before me. The word versus the world's direction, God will always win. I was watching something, not necessarily that somebody would die or anything, but on your Facebook feed, there was somebody was talking about somebody who was just a wicked governor. And not a criticism, just an observation. Ain't scared of nobody, ain't hating nobody, and don't wish nobody bad. But the word of God says, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Santita, that's what I believe. My responsibility is to trust God's direction for me, work with the ones who are like mine, Santita, me, people who are doing good, and let God's will be done through the word versus the world's direction. We choose to trust, follow, and believe God.
Amen. Amen. And indeed, we choose to do that, whatever you call God. Some people call God by a different name, and some people feel that God is so sacred that they dare not utter his name at all. And some people are doubtful that God exists, and some people say God doesn't exist at all. But I tell you what, there is something high and good in this universe, and we need to be obedient to it. And I think that if we would do so, we'd have a much better world. May God bless you. And I just love you and pray for you every day. And thank God for your ministry at Grace Central Church in Westchester, Illinois. Again, when can people get your food and what is your address?
Grace Central Church, 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, every Tuesday from 5 till 7. Ooh, we gave away 600 school things yesterday to 600 families. 10216 South Kitchener Street, Westchester, Illinois, right off of 290 in Manheim, right by Hillside, Maywood. We still by the hood. I love serving. And then on Wednesdays from noon till 2, we serve the seniors so they won't come out in the evening.
Mm-hmm. Praise God. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for that. I love the First Lady Deborah and First Young Lady Dasha, who's in college. Praise the Lord. Can't wait to have you on. I keep saying this, but one day I want you to come on and share your journey with people, because your life is a testimony to the miracles that God can perform. I love you, Pastor Darius Brooks. Sending you much love. And of course, you can still get all of his records with the Tommies, and your will is what's best for me. So there you go, everybody. Darius Brooks, Pastor Darius Brooks, everybody. Grace Central Church. We've got Dr. Shanina Knighton. Dr. Shanina Knighton, infection preventionist, registered nurse, PhD, college lecturer, Case Western Reserve University. But now she's got this big job where she is really heading up the largest group, I would say is certainly one of the largest groups in the world of infection control experts and epidemiologists. Indeed, she's an infection preventionist. She's the executive director of APICS, New Center for IPC Research, Practice and Prevention. Every time I see these stories where we're talking about these children going back to school, and the teachers and the paraprofessionals, everyone who's going to be in the building, the janitorial staff, I have a special heart for them, Dr. Knighton, because they have to clean up after everybody. I think they might be more vulnerable than certainly we want to say. Of course, we'll be talking about student loan debt at the bottom of the hour and these utility bills that so many people are not able to pay. Will they be cold this winter? Will they be able to eat? Will they be able to cook their food? We're going to talk about that later on. But what else? Because we've started talking about what you said, we want to be warriors, not warriors. Now, wait a minute. How did you come up with that? What do you mean by that? Do you think we're worrying too much and we're not on guard enough?
That's exactly it. I think that oftentimes when we're thinking about what it is we should be doing, we're thinking more about what can happen to us opposed to what it is that we can do to prevent it from happening. And that's why I always say that prevention is better than treatment. So instead of us trying to figure out ways for which we cannot be affected by a situation, the tone and the culture of our country is actually saying, oh, well, get this vaccine because if you get COVID, then the symptoms won't be severe. And my argument is can we talk about just normalizing people not being sick from it at all because we stepped up our infection prevention and control practices. And that is the irony of it, is that we should really be focusing on ways to prevent getting things opposed to us now having to understand the long-term consequences of things. So, for example, when a pandemic, or I would not even say a pandemic, but a pathogen comes along, which is a harmful germ, when a harmful or deadly germ comes around and it becomes on our radar, instead of us saying, okay, well, it's not that bad, we don't know the long-term effects of what it's going to do until years down the line. We don't know all of the damage that is done until the dust has settled. At this point, we know that COVID has caused issues as far as long COVID, foggy brain, people with ringing in their ears, people that have had, some sort of organ failure as a result of them already being at the tipping point before getting sick, people that have lung damage that seems to be irreversible in some cases. So it's like, why do we want to normalize saying that we're going to get something but not as severe, opposed to saying, how do I just prevent from getting it at all? And it's not to say that we're going to be perfect, but if we normalize infection prevention and control, then as these pathogens come around, we can work on ways to be able to prevent them and know that our safety measures are in place, that we are well equipped to play defense, opposed to us playing, I would say honestly, we're there playing offense and defense. And this is, of course, the football season is getting ready to start. So we need to be on guard on both, making sure that we're protecting our body so that way we are not bringing anything in, but also making sure that we're protecting others that are around us. And unfortunately, that's not where we are in this current state. I'm still hearing people make comments of, oh, it's not too bad. Oh, this strain ain't too bad. It's like, why normalize getting sick opposed to just saying, you know what, I want to clean my hands. I'm going to be careful about the company that I keep. And I'm going to make sure, that I do wear my mask in these settings now. Now that I understand that masks work, let me wear them in areas that are not familiar to me. And let me make sure that I'm cleaning my cell phone. And let me make sure that if my hairdresser tell me that she's sick or she's just getting over a cold, I have to understand that my hair might not be as important as me not being sick. Because wherever I want to wear my good hair to, I can't wear my hairstyle to if I'm sick too. So we really have to rationalize some of the decisions that we make. And unfortunately, that's not what's happening. I've seen situations, Santita, where people will show up to an event and saying, oh, well, I didn't want to miss it, but I'm feeling under the weather. Stay at home. Like, the selfishness is that you're going to get somebody else sick because you can't wait because you want what you want right now. And the thing is, it's a saying, and I can't tell you where I got it from, but it's the fact that people are not willing to sacrifice what they really want for later, but temporarily what they want right now. Which means that if we want something bigger and greater, we're not willing to wait on it. And right now, the biggest thing with the pandemic was everyone needing to wear masks, everyone needing to, clean their hands. There's been this notion of freedom that people wanted. When I say freedom, I'm not talking about anything political. I'm talking about health. I'm talking about the freedom when it comes to health. And so we want health so bad, but we don't want to make the sacrifices of what it takes to get there as a people. So, and I'm not pointing out anybody individually. And so we have to reevaluate where we are with our health and understand how we need to become the CEO of it.
And it's possible, right? It really is possible. Good hand hygiene. It's a lot of the things that we were doing a year ago. It's all fallen by the wayside. It's as if we have not learned anything from this, everybody. And we need to learn. Be a warrior, not a warrior. I didn't come up with that. That is Dr. Shanina Knighton. I love it. Be a warrior. Be the CEO of your own health. Sending you much love. Just in about 30 seconds, what do you want people to know as they send their kids, as they send their kids, as teachers go back, as people are going back to school today? What do you want them to do? If there's one thing you want them to do.
I want parents to not just tell their kids to clean their hands. I want them to actually evaluate them and make sure that they're practicing them for 20 to 25 seconds.
How about that? Is that like happy birthday?
That is, but it's not just telling kids to do it. It's monitoring them to make sure they're doing it correctly each and every time, because that's their first line of defense.
Monitoring and modeling. Show your children that is what they're supposed to do. Dr. Shanina Knighton, everybody, please join her on social media at Hey Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA. Go on and follow her. Let's pull up these numbers because she's got a lot to say. And I want you to meet me on Twitter at Santita J, and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody, please like and share. Everybody, Mark and Kenneth and Miss Robinson, Cuckoo Kachu and Dave Dowling and Kenneth D. Everybody, please, everybody, Linear Bob, Erica, everybody who's out there today, please like and share the show. Just with one person at least. Like and share the show. And if you want to hear the podcast of the show, go to WCPT820.com/Santita. Let's talk about student loan debt. What do you think about it, everybody? Student loan debt. What do you think about the president's student loan debt forgiveness program? Is it enough? Is it a campaign dream fulfilled or deferred? Back in a minute.
Putin stop these attacks immediately. The ban on Russian oil imports.
How you doing, hon?
News that happens next will happen on WCPT 820.
This is Elliot Richardson from the Small Business Advocacy Council. The SBAC is working with an incredible
Dr. Knighton, are you still there?
And community organizations to revitalize struggling business districts
in
disadvantaged Chicago communities. Many neighborhood business districts are plagued by
Good.
vacancies and a lack
Good
of
hearing
business
your
activity.
voice this morning.
This greatly harms local communities,
Good
residents,
hearing your
and
voice. We're
negatively
talking about
impacts
these. What do
public
you think about
safety.
the student loan debt? Will that help you at all?
Policies that will reduce vacancies in struggling communities. We fight to cut needless red tape so that small businesses and property owners can more easily fill vacant properties with thriving businesses. We work to
if you
reduce
want to stay on
costs
for it,
small
you know you're more
businesses
than
and
welcome
property
to.
owners that want to move into neighborhood business districts, and we advocate for policies that will support local investment in local communities.
I am
Let's fill
doing all
vacant
this new
storefronts in
iron.
disadvantaged communities. Let's revitalize neighborhood business districts. Learn more and join our grassroots
It is a
movement to
lot for me.
revitalize disadvantaged neighborhood business districts in Cook County and Chicago by visiting sbacil.org. That's sbacil.org.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago traffic and weather update.
In Gurnee, we have a report of some debris on Hunt Club Road at Westbrook near Gurnee Mills. Looking at heavy traffic on the inbound Kennedy, Harlem to Central. It's 30 minutes from O'Hare to downtown Chicago, outbound 24. Inbound Eisenhower, traffic is backing up on the extension. There's a crash at York Road at the two right lanes. Delays kick in around Grand Avenue. And then traffic slow Manhunt to Des Plaines Avenue. It's 40 minutes and rising, 390 to downtown. On Stevenson, 38 minutes from the Veterans Memorial to DuSable Lakeshore Drive. Ryan, 16 minutes, 95th to downtown. I-57, 19 minutes. I-80 to the merge Bishop, 424. There was a crash on the Rhine at 87th. Northbound Tri-State is heavy. Archer to 75th and St. Charles to North Avenue. I'm Jim Calamonte.
Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
Shanita, you still there?
Scattered showers and thunderstorms possible late today. Otherwise, cloudy skies, a high in the low 80s. Winds out of the southwest around 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 20. Then for tonight, a slight chance for showers and thunderstorms, mostly cloudy, a low near 67. Friday, skies will become mostly sunny, high of 76 degrees.
All right, I have the attorneys up.
Okay, we have Attorney Patillo.
The Weatherology Weather Center.
Yeah, so Attorney Patillo, Attorney Jones, and Attorney Connolly.
Yeah, I just want them to. Thank you so much. I just want to be able to speak to them. Attorney Patillo.
The August heat. Cool
Hi,
down behind the wheel of a
he's
new
way
Porsche
back in the mix.
from the Porsche Exchange in Highland Park. Browse our hottest models, including favorites
Attorney
like
Patillo?
the Cayenne, Macan, Panamera, the 911, and the fully electric Taycan. Stay cool and special order your Porsche today. Or stop in for a test drive at the Porsche Exchange in Highland
Attorney
Park.
Jones?
Visit 4Porsche.com. The number 4, Porsche.com.
This is Jonas.
Attorney Connolly.
And WCPT is proud to support labor unions and the hardworking
Okay, I can
middle
barely
class.
hear
We
them.
do it with our monthly Union Strong segments. Join me as I welcome respected labor leaders to my show and get their perspective on current events, local and
Okay,
national
Cosme?
politics, and how labor unions are more relevant today than ever. Proudly sponsored by Smart Local 265, IBEW Local 176.
Hello?
Finishing Chicago and Roofers and Waterproofers Local 11.
I can,
Learn
Cosme,
more
I
at
can barely hear
WCPT.com.
the
We stand on the shoulders
the
of the women who
attorneys.
came before us.
Women
30 seconds.
bad with
Cosme,
money.
I can
Women
barely
who
hear the
couldn't even
attorneys.
get
Can
a
you bring
credit
them
card
up?
without a man co-signing.
Women who fought for their own financial.
That should fix it now.
Okay, let me hear them. Attorney Patillo.
Join us at We Say.
Good morning.
Okay, very good. Attorney Jones.
And all budgets are
Good morning.
Okay, very good. Attorney
work hard.
You make money.
Connolly.
They'll make that money work for you.
Invest.
Good morning, Santita.
Okay, great. How's John doing?
Hey, we got 5 seconds.
He's great. He had the best first day of school ever. I'm so pleased.
Love it, I know.
Facts matter.
Bless his heart.
Thanks.
Can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. I'm looking for Shapora Wells this morning. Celebrations by us. If we don't get her now, we'll get her certainly before the segment is over. I got my oxtails from her this weekend, and I'm so happy. Everybody call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Let's talk about student loan debt forgiveness. We're living in a very interesting world. You know, when our parents and even my babysitters, maybe 20, 30 years ago, you used to be able to get a job during the summer or work an additional job, and that would pay for college for you.
I have Chaparral.
That is no longer the case, everybody. That's no longer the case. So I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. Who can afford to pay $100,000 a year for tuition? That's the University of Chicago. That's NYU, and on and on and on. And if they're not paying $100,000 now, they are about to kiss it. $99,000, $98,000 a year. And that's just to get in the door. So what about that? What about that? And that's at the high end. You've got 80,000, you've got 70,000. Who can afford that? Most Americans cannot even afford an emergency room visit. So let's talk about that today. Let's talk about that today, because you heard certainly many of the culture warriors and pundits on television today saying that, oh, for people who paid off their loans and for people who, you know, you just wanted to get an Ivy League degree. Yeah, you want an Ivy League degree because that's a fast track to the elite in the United States. And sadly, that protects you in the United States, not your hard work, not meritocracy, but where you are. So let's talk about that. 773-763-9278. President Biden, some people say he hasn't gone far enough, but he's gone much further than anybody else. He canceled up to $10,000, $20,000 in student loan debt for millions of Americans. How will that impact you? We've got a tremendous panel with us today, but before we get to Attorney Patillo, Attorney Aaron Connolly, and Attorney Darrell Jones, let us talk with Shapora Wells. Celebrations by us. Love it, love it, love it. You know, I just had to talk about those oxtails. Oh.
Good morning, Santita. And yes, we are up and we are working already. And we are getting ready to actually do some events that we have this weekend. And we're prepping for those as we speak. So give us a call at 708-526-4546. 708-526-4546. We can handle all of your decor, as well as also your balloon arches, your seat tables, and of course our famous food. So if you should need us, please call us at 708-526-4546. 708-526-4546. We look forward to serving you, and thank you so much, Santita.
Thank you for my oxtails and my string beans with my turkey.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Oh yeah, they were gone by Monday. Isn't that great? I was so happy. I was so happy. I loved it, loved it, loved it. We love celebrations by us. 708-526-4546. And thank you, Santita Jackson Show family, for giving Chaparral and this wonderful business support. Let's go to, before we go to this wonderful panel, Patrick from Park Ridge. Patrick, how you doing?
Doing great. Loving the rain. My water needs the rain.
Is it raining out there already?
A couple things. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Santita, do you have children that are in college or recently in college?
I don't have any children, but I have nieces and nephews and godchildren. Yes.
Because what you just said about the tuitions, and you're in Chicago, other places, yes, getting bigger numbers. That's really, I've got multiple children that are in college, out of college. It's a marketing ploy by the universities to say, hey, our tuition is $90,000. It must be better than school. It's only charging $60,000. So, but no one really pays the full price, or very, very few people do, because what they do is they give you discounts off of that tuition because of your grades, or because your extracurriculars, or because of other factors. So no one's really paying that amount. That's marketing. So that's for starters. But then,
that's not what I'm hearing from many parents I know who have children in college now. That's not what I'm hearing at all.
Well, I'm telling you, that's my experience. I've got multiple kids who've just graduated or are in college right now.
I have.
That's definitely how it works.
Well, I have another experience with my friends who are paying that at the University of Chicago. Well, I'm going to let you finish, but I just want you to say that, what your individual experience and mine cannot really be everybody's experience. And I think we need to understand that, because I know what my godson, what his parents are having to come out of pocket for at USC right now. I know what another one of my godchildren at NYU is having to come out of pocket for right now. Fortunately, her parents can afford to pay for it without thinking about it. I'm just telling, and I've got a niece who's at Brown right now. I have another nephew who's at another school. I know what my brothers are paying for their children to go to school.
Okay, and that's their choice. There's other schools like the University of Illinois. I had a child graduate from there this past May, and that's under $30,000 a year. So there are options for people to do. But really, I was calling to talk about the student loans. That was the question you asked before the last break. And with the student loan situation going on, yes, there's a campaign promise fulfilled by the president. But it's really more so.
Or was it a dream deferred? I asked that too.
It was well, it's pure and simple. It's just buying votes right now for the upcoming midterm election. Let's call it what it is. The president and the Democrats simply want to buy votes of young Americans who have this debt, and there's simply no reason for it. It's absolutely ridiculous for those of us who don't have any federal student loans. What about 2/3 of Americans who don't go to college? They've got to pay. They've got to pay for the debts of others.
But you know what? But you know what's interesting about that, Patrick? A lot of people. But let me. I want to engage you. But I want to engage you in conversation. I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm trying to have a conversation with you. Okay. What about people who opt not to go to college? More and more Americans, more of our children are opting not to go to college than at any time in our history. Because it's just, the debt is not worth it, and it's something that they cannot see themselves paying for. I've shared this story with you before. I was a National Merit Scholar my senior year in high school, which gave me options for scholarships, which was fantastic. And what was interesting was in the 80s, people started not going, Merit Scholars started not going to Ivy League schools. Why? Because we got better packages at other schools. I had a full 4-year scholarship. My mother went to what she thought was like the rest of my bill at Howard University. One of the proudest moments of my life was that my mother came to my room and she said, I had my checkbook ready to pay to defray the rest of your expenses. She said, but when I got there, they told me that you owed nothing. That in fact you had extra money in your account. And my mother was almost in tears. She said, I said, that's why I wanted to come here, Mom, because you said you wanted me to earn scholarships to college. So I wouldn't, because my parents, they just didn't need that burden. She's, because I lived under the threat of assassination of my father every day. So I had to live with the real possibility that he would not be alive to pay the tuition. Plus, my father was giving most of his money away anyway. And so I'm just saying to you, but I also had the option of going to Harvard or Yale. But my parents made $1 too much for me to get any kind of money to go there, right? But, my father said, if you want to go, I'll make sure that you go. But many kids just decided, I don't need this debt. I don't need to carry this on me. And I'm just saying to you, Patrick, I'm just trying to make the point that I hear you, and I'm state schools, a lot of kids who could go to many schools are choosing to go to schools that are far less expensive. Not that they don't want to go to the Harvards and Yale so they can meet all the scions of the elite families and get connections. No, they can't afford it. That's why you go to these schools, right?
Yes. That's, I think, another discussion we could talk about for multiple hours, and that's just the cost of higher education. Mm-hmm. I totally agree. It's absolutely ridiculous. But as far as the student loans and the payoff that the government's doing right now, that the Biden administration, the Democrats are doing, is simply buying votes. The same way Lori Lightfoot handed out the gas cards to Chicago residents because their political opponent paid for it out of his own pocket. Mm-hmm. Lori made the citizens of Chicago pay for the gas cards that she handed out, simply buying votes. And that's absolutely ridiculous as a taxpayer.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Well, you know what? I thank you for engaging me.
Thank you.
Bless your heart. And thank you for listening. Bless your heart. I know you thought I was going to cut you off. I wasn't cutting you off, Patrick. I wanted to talk with you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sweetie. And much love to your family. I wish your children every success, and very little debt. Attorney Robert Patillo, Attorney Darrell Jones, Chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. Of course, you host your own show with Barbara Online on WOL every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. Robert Patillo from 1 to 4 every Sunday on WAOK. Don't miss it. And of course, the brilliant political strategist and organizer and consultant, Attorney Erin Connolly. Let me start with you, Robert Patillo, because yesterday you were on fire about this announcement that was forthcoming. What do you think about the plan now that you've seen it?
Well, I think the plan is better than we thought it was going to be after looking into the details, because the top line number that people kind of got up in arms about was $10,000. And, and as we said, it's a drop in the bucket for most African Americans when it comes to student loans. But then there's $20,000 for Pell Grants. Okay, that's a little bit better. We're still not taking as far. But then when you get into the repayment options that are now there, where now if you have debt that is under 12 years old, then all of a sudden that starts getting eliminated. Okay, we're starting to get a little bit better. We're going to drop it from 10% of your income down to 5% of your income. Okay, now we're starting to get a lot better on this. That we're not going to have debt that's stretching into your 50s and 60s, that after 20 years, most of your debt will be forgiven if you've been making your payments consistently for a decade. Okay, well, now we're cooking with gas. We got something going on here. So I think the end of the bill ended up being not quite what many progressives wanted, but definitely a step in the right direction of at least giving people an opportunity. And to this kind of specious argument that, well, why do I need to pay the debts of another? And none of us borrow all this money from China, but we're paying that money back. will we give Wall Street a bank bailout, or we give the airline industry an airline bailout, or the automotive industry an automotive bailout? I ain't borrowed no money for GM, but we give them that money. Billions of dollars in PPP loans that were forgiven. If you weren't a small business owner, you didn't qualify for the PPP loan forgiveness and the paperwork that was involved in that, but we did that to sustain the economy. We have to have in this country, we have to have an educated workforce to do the things of the future. I know that the GOP often, I like to think of us as being this broad Jeffersonian agrarian economy, or that we're going to go back to the manufacturing industry of the 1950s. You know, we always talk about those good heartland Rust Belt jobs. They don't exist anymore. They're not going to exist anymore. They have 3D printers that will do more than 100 people now. They have, as we go to the Tesla factory, they have what's called a gigapress. And what the gigapress is like what it sounds like. It's a big thing that it presses out a car and then it rolls down and then they glue it together and then it drives off. We're not going back to the days of Harold Ford or Henry Ford, rather, where we're going to have these broad production lines, powering the arsenal of democracy. So, in order to keep our economy going in the second half of the 21st century, we have to have the people who can operate the machinery, the people who can write the code for that. We have to look at what's going on in Mumbai, what's going on in Lagos, what's going on in Shanghai and Taipei. These are the people that we're competing with now. It's not just us competing with the guy across the street. We're competing with somebody with a computer science degree at the age of 15 because they have a concentration program in Xinjiang that allows them to compete for the future. So we want America to be competitive going forward. We have to unshackle people and not incentivize people to not become the types of experts that are needed for the future. So what Biden did was a step in the right direction. What I hope Democrats do is say, this is step one. This is what can be done from the executive branch. Give us a filibuster-proof majority in the United States Senate. Give us the continued reins in the House of Representatives. Give us a mandate to govern going into 2023, and we can get you guys all the way home on that. I think we should understand, and also I think the criticism from the right is actually galvanizing the left. People who were criticizing Biden previously, after seeing the type of pushback and blowback he's getting from the political right, they're starting to understand, this is why he couldn't just do it. These folks are crazy on the other side. And because of that, it's becoming a campaign year issue that can be used across the country. And if you can use that to create the mandate necessary, then you really can have full-blown repayment and forgiveness of loans for people who are making under $125,000 and give them the opportunity, the American dream that was robbed from them.
Attorney Aaron Connolly, what do you think about this? And we are, just for the record, we were going to be moving on to another topic. Robert and Attorney Darrell Jones and Attorney Aaron Connolly will be talking about slavery tomorrow because that's on the books. But I think you would agree that talking about student loan debt forgiveness is a big issue. And Matt Sowell from AM 950 Radio in Minneapolis, St. Paul says, look, just give Crimea River, folks. People need the help. They do. They need the help. I mean, quite frankly, progressives are now calling for tuition-free college. I mean, other countries invest in their citizens. I don't care what their backgrounds are, because an educated citizenry advantages everybody. I mean, I don't know what the pushback is, but what do you think about what the president did yesterday? Some people said, it was a campaign promise fulfilled. Some people say, well, this is still not enough. This is not going to lower my payments a whole lot. What do you make of this, Aaron?
Well, I am heartened by the effort. Let's say that. I think it's a great first step in the right direction. But the reality is the system of education and higher education in this country is broken and a for-profit system, right? And what this does is equalizes it, especially for first-generation college students, Black, brown, immigrant students, women who take out a larger percentage of those student loans than their white male counterparts. period, right? If you go to any sort of master's law school, many of us on this call understand the loan process there, right? And particularly, I think folks who are in that boat were a little disappointed because maybe hoping we would get like a $50,000 cap on forgiveness, but this is a good start. The repayment plan options are also a great start. I think the thing that I was most disappointed about, and I think that most people who have student loans who really understand the nuance of this issue and understand that this is a economic and family issue for many, especially millennials in this country, right? People in my generation and that are around 40 years old, right? We've been hit by recession after recession. We've taken out student loans, told we would be able to get these great jobs to pay them back. And that hasn't been the case for many folks. And then we have pandemic on top of it. So people were on the verge of drowning in this student debt payment if it started again in September. I think the language from the Biden administration saying that this is the final stop on payments in December is a little concerning for folks as well who are trying to navigate and then, figure out what their monthly payments are going to be. So there's a lot of things at play here. My concern with the rhetoric of we can't forgive any debt on the other side, I believe has galvanized anyone who supports a small measure of student loan forgiveness. And I think what is missing there is exactly what Robert outlined and what President Biden discussed yesterday is this is an investment. We've decided now the Biden administration is investing in people, individual families who took out an investment on themselves and who were probably at 17, 18 years old, didn't really fully understand the impact of that giant decision that they're making in their financial universe, right? And so people that have paid, let's say, initially a $50,000 loan, they've paid that principal off. They've paid that $50,000 off, but still have nearly $50,000 of interest payments on that, right? So people, I think, are okay paying for what they agreed to. But as we move forward and look at our education system, how students get these loans and how the government supports education needs to be changed. So I think the Democrats have an option here to say, let's reform this whole system. College should be cheaper for everyone. Trade schools should be cheaper. The government should either provide families with an investment in a 529 savings account at the birth of this child that nobody can touch except the kid when they get to need a private high school or a college tuition payment. We need to start investing in families. Let's be proactive, progressive in how we formulate that policy. But as someone who has a stepdaughter who's about to enter college next year, it's expensive and it's getting more expensive. And thankfully, she's eligible for many scholarships and support based on her academic achievement, like you, Santita, but not everybody is. And those kids and those families deserve help in some way. They deserve to have it just be a little bit easier, right?
I mean, let me tell you, Aaron, I know my parents did. Because my parents were looking at 4 tuitions that they were going to have to be paying at one time. Now you can say, oh, they shouldn't have had all those kids. Like my mother said, who do you want to send back? Well, what is that? It's a false choice, and it's Faustian at that. It's wicked that that we can afford. We're giving billions of dollars to Ukraine every time I look up. We've given them more money this past week than we ever have. I'm like, all this foreign aid we give all over the world, you mean to tell me you can't figure out tuition for American children, for our future? I don't understand that.
What if we make that investment? What if we make that investment?
Gaddafi did that. Gaddafi said they were the least indebted nation, not just in Africa, but they were like the second or third least indebted nation in the world. Any place you wanted to go to college in the world or graduate school, you went debt-free. The government paid for it. He said, we've got all this oil, the finest oil, crude oil on earth. It's going to work for everybody. It's going to work for everybody. So what we're going to do is invest, since we are a nation that is building, we're on as the folks would say, come up, Aaron. What we're going to do is invest in you. That's what we're going to do. We're going to pay for you to go to school. I don't understand why this is such a fight. But, it's a fight with some people. It's a fight with people, Aaron, who already have. I'm like, because, I have to be honest with you. I think that if a child is wealthy and they've worked, I think, look, if you want to go to school, I think that just ought to be it. You ought to go to school. Period. Next. I don't think that wealthy children should be excluded from this. I don't think anybody. I think if you want to go to school, you ought to be able to go to school. Money should not be the consideration. The last minute belongs to you, Aaron.
Well, and how we're measuring income too. So we have $125,000 limit on this. That $125,000 isn't the same for everyone too. So there's an issue there, but we should be focused on everyone. Give everyone an opportunity to do this. And you don't know people's personal situations. You don't know what they're going through. The best investment we can make is making sure families can have access to equitable education, and that we have a chance at life after that education, that it's not a burden, that it's a blessing.
Absolutely.
Our policy should reflect that.
Well, we're going to hear from you, Attorney Daryl Jones, on the other side. I know you've got a lot to say. Attorney C.K. Hoffler just sent me a text. She said, hey, I can jump in. So I want you to, and I want you to continue to jump in. Patrick, thank you for calling in. Call us at 773-763-9278. Renee, you got a lot to say. I wish you would call in, girl. 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Let us talk about student loan debt forgiveness. I mean, and the backdrop for this is this. Attorney Aaron Connolly, Attorney Robert Patillo, Attorney Daryl Jones, 20 million more Americans, and I say more, the headline just says 20 million Americans, 20 million more Americans. A lot of them don't have utilities anyway. 20 million more are looking at shutoffs over the next couple of months as it's about to get cold. What is that about? I just read about a woman in Detroit. She had a fourth of her check garnished because she looked up and she was like, I owe money. Folks are trying to get out from under. Have a heart, and it should not be you. It's you shouldn't be. You shouldn't wait until it's you before you have a heart for somebody. The fact is, Americans, the rent is too damn high for everybody. Yeah, I said it. It's too high. It costs too much to live in the United States, and it shouldn't be this way. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute.
Right now at Huck Volkswagen Joliet, take advantage of invoice pricing on new Volkswagen Atlas and Atlas Cross Sport models. We've got them in stock and ready to drive home.
I'm coming to you, Daryl. How did everything go for you yesterday? You said it was a tough day in court.
MSRP. We've got over 200.
It was a tough day in court, but we'll get the resolution today. We'll find out our decision today. But it was a tough day.
Well,
and sometimes I see things with a harsher eye than a jury does. So perhaps the jury's eyes will be more positive than the eyes that I have.
Well, that's okay. We win. And we continue to win as long as we continue to fight.
There you go.
All right, Attorney Hoffler's on.
Attorney Hoffler, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Santita?
Doing great. You got a lot going on, which is why I just reached out to you, but I didn't want to press.
Well, I just got on.
God bless you. God bless you. So stand by. I'm talking about these. I'm going to talk about slavery tomorrow, and I hope that you all can join tomorrow as we talk about slavery being on the ballot in at least 5 states in November of 2022. It's not over in the United States, but I think it's important for us to talk about these.
On Wednesday. We'll continue.
Renee, I know you're getting dressed for work. Just
cheers
put
from
the
the audience.
open, tell her to call us and just put us on speaker. Come on, and get close to the speaker. How about that? That's what you do. Got a lot to say. A lot of people have a lot to say about this student loan debt forgiveness. A lot. And we are on Facebook Live, everybody. So if you all want to talk, say what you have to say. Dr. Knighton said, thank you, Attorney Patillo, for that mic drop moment. And Jeff from Chicago, okay.
Officers armed with rifles.
Okay, all right, we'll come to you, Jeff. Everybody call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278.
I said Jeff was from Chicago. He's actually from Indiana.
Ah, okay.
Do you just want me to text you that, or could you remember?
Would you please text me that? That would be good. Just say Indiana. That's all you need to do.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. So how is everyone today? Aaron, you doing well?
For a total of $20,000.
Oh yes, big first day of school, first week of school, and it's fitting that this decision would come out on the first day of school. And it was interesting to hear what a lot of the other parents were saying.
What were they saying
yesterday about this? A lot of them are, not necessarily eligible based on the income.
Yeah.
Some of them were, which is great. I think what was the most heartening to me is that they were still excited, right? This is an affluent community, and these are folks that normally are probably in the middle of the road and said, this is great. It's going to be a boost to the economy. This is really a consumer economy. It's debilitating for people. I worry about my kids going to school. So there was really a positive discussion about it. And, I think that was really great. So,
look, I know on paper I was not eligible for any scholarships, right? I knew that.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, I needed them. And is it not? Do I not have the right to not want to take the burden off my parents for college? I mean, really?
Yes, and not carry it yourself, Santita. And that's the thing. Even if your parents, and we're going through this process now, if you even have a full ride, if you have some scholarships, you still have to do a work study that takes your time. You still maybe have to have another job for the expenses and the potentially expensive city you're living in. You have to keep up with your classmates who may be coming from generational wealth and have a completely different understanding of how the world works and expect everybody to live in that same world, right? So in many of these elite institutions, especially, the money for the tuition is just the beginning, right? And that process still, you should have other options of an interest-free loan, for example, maybe. And we're looking at colleges like Dartmouth College, who's trying that model where students don't take out any loans, and there's grants made available. The university's working with folks to make sure that students can pay for it without going this route where most students have this ballooning debt where $50,000 can turn into $150 with very little notice.
There is an HBCU, and I know it, where the kids work their way through college. They take care of the campus, and that eliminates their debt.
Other banks make it to redeem credit card rewards.
Wow, that's amazing.
I'm going to call.
A minute 30.
Yeah, I'm going to call this guy today at Wiley College. That's right, at Wiley College. CK, you remember him.
One more second on Andrew Yang, then we have to. The pathetic
You
narcissist.
remember the president at Wiley College.
For mayor of New York, I'll get a lot of attention, right? Me. Kind of like Kirsten Sinema. Same idea. Just pay attention to me.
Yeah, they work their way.
Not answer a question about what they stand for. This percent of our people are Democrats and this percent are Republicans. Everybody wants something new. And, the top line numbers that we all can pull out all the time when people say they want certain things, they want things to be perfect. That has nothing to do with actual voting patterns. But in this case, Costa said, well, what are your positions? What's your position on Roe? Well, we don't take a left position or a right position. We take a forward position. The fact does that mean he wouldn't take a position on assault rifles, he wouldn't take a position on anything else. The Ford Party is
30 seconds.
Thank you.
Yang is a performative grifter joke. They have no positions. They won't have positions. Do not support them.
Hear more from Cliff at heartlandsignal.com
and subscribe to his YouTube page.
The Tom Hartman radio program provides all of the intelligence, information, and insight.
All right, 10 seconds.
Thank you.
Wars, weekdays 11 to 2, right here on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show, extending this conversation about student loan debt forgiveness. President Biden did something really big yesterday. Up to $20,000 in student loans will be forgiven from millions of students all across the country. Some people say that's too much. Some people say that's not enough. What do you think about that? I mean, we give money away really for corporate interests. I think that, we have to dig down Robert Patillo and talk about where this money really goes and in whom we trust and invest. Actually, I think we need to be very, very honest about that, because corporate interest, remember, America's business is business. What America does best and what America does most is protect businesses, not you. We're having to change that paradigm. So let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. I came across Wiley College in Texas, an HBCU, where the students they do not accumulate debt because they work through college on the campus. They grow food. They take care of the the athletic fields, and on and on and on. So it's an incredible program. But let's talk about student loan debt forgiveness. Attorney C.K. Hoffler is joining the panel, but we're going to hear from Attorney Darrell Jones, brilliant civil rights lawyer, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition. We were just hearing from a mother who's about to send a daughter to college, Attorney Aaron Connolly. God bless you and your hubby. And of course, Attorney Robert Patillo, giving us such brilliant insight and analysis. And so we want to hear from you at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. We'll be speaking with you, Jeff, from Indiana, in a hot second. But let me get to some of these headlines before we do. Chicago, we will have a high of 80 degrees. Showers. It's already showering out there in Park Ridge. We heard from you earlier this morning. And so sending you much love, Patrick. And of course, the Dow closed up 59 points yesterday. The NASDAQ closed up 50 points. The S&P 500 closed up 12. In Major League Baseball, something historic is going to happen next year. There will be interleague play all year long. 3-game series between the National and American leagues. This has never happened before. Fantastic news. The White Sox 5 yesterday, the Orioles 3, the Cubs 7, the Cardinals 1, and the Astros 5, and the Twins 3. And in the WNBA, they're not playing tonight, but the Sky lead in their series 2-1. Huge announcement from President Biden yesterday. Up to $20,000 will be forgiven for millions of people of student loan debt. Millions of borrowers, in addition to extending the existing payment pause, borrowers who make less than $125,000 a year are eligible for up to $20,000 in student loan forgiveness if they received Pell Grants, which are given to students from low and middle income families. Individuals who make less than $125,000 a year but did not receive Pell Grants are eligible for $10,000 in loan debt forgiveness. What do you think about that, everybody? Is that enough? Nearly 8 million borrowers may be able to receive debt forgiveness automatically because the Department of Education already has their income information. We will see. I want to hear what your thoughts are. You have a lot of thoughts about that today. Kobe Bryant, everybody. A federal jury awarded $31 million in damages after finding the LA County Sheriff and Fire Departments liable for infringing on the constitutional rights of Vanessa Bryant, the widow of Kobe Bryant and the mother of Gianna Bryant, Gigi, and co-plaintiff Christopher Chester, who lost a wife and daughter in that crash. Wow. Bryant was awarded $16 million. Mr. Chester was awarded $15 million. And let's tell you what happened, everybody. The lawsuit And it was proved that LA County deputies and firefighters, first responders, took photos not just of the wreckage, but of the bodies. It turns out we found out that Kobe Bryant, God bless him, was decapitated in this crash. They were showing those photos in bars and in private settings. Vanessa Bryant said, I don't want my children to bump into these photos. I don't want to bump into these photos. I don't want anyone to bump into these photos. How dare they do that? And she was joined by Mr. Chester. God bless her and that family. They are still suffering. That $16 and $15 million will not bring their family back, but I hope that it will give them, at least these people will be accountable. The Uvalde School Board voted unanimously yesterday to immediately terminate the contract of District Police Chief Pete Arredondo 3 months after a gunman killed 19 children and 2 teachers at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. He has come under increased and intense public scrutiny over the law enforcement response, which was under his command, to the May 24th massacre, America's deadliest shooting since 2012. And in fact, of course, he infamously said that he would give families more explanations once they stopped crying and grieving everybody. Starbucks has illegally withheld raises from union workers, according to the National Labor Relations Board. Now, this is as the Star Workers United union has been put into place. Well, it turns out there was a complaint received by this Labor Relations Board, the National Labor Relations Board, because these employees who did the labor organizing had their raises withheld from them. What do you think about that? Call me at 773-763-9278. Let's talk about these student loans. But before we do, let's talk about financial freedom, everybody. If you have poor credit, if you have no credit, if you need to build your credit, if you have massive credit card bills, if you want to buy a home, but you say, I don't have enough credit, I don't have enough money saved, if you need a plan, Team Hochberg can help you. If you want to hear about reverse mortgages, if you want to purchase a new home, but you don't quite know how to do it, Team Hochberg can help you. If you want to refinance your existing home, Team Hochberg can help you. If you want a VA loan, they can help you, they can help you, they can help you. Call them at 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com, 855-56-DAVID or visit 56david.com. I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to get a free consultation. Tell them everything because they've heard it all. And when you do, you might get a pleasant surprise. David, another David, who posted this 5-star Google review, said that he and his wife made good money, but they had no way of paying off their credit card debt. They had $45,000 in credit card debt. That's not hard. That's not hard to happen. You can make that happen because people buying their groceries on credit, everybody. But after they worked with Team Hochberg, or rather when Team Hochberg worked with them after they told them everything, they were able to save over $1,000 a month and bring down that credit card debt. It could be you, everybody. Call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com. Let's talk about student loan debt. You know, let me get right to it. Let me go to Jeff from Indiana. Jeff, what's on your mind?
Good morning.
Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning to you and your guests. Hey, a few points. Number one, the argument from the right is completely disingenuous. Their logic in this being a bad thing is that this potentially is going to overheat an already overheated economy. Somebody needs to remind them that the majority of students haven't been paying on loans since COVID. So there's that. Another thing that parents can do, and this is really, really important, when your child is going to go into higher education, the first question that should be asked when the child selects a criteria is, what is your placement after graduation? I think that really can solve a lot of the issues that we're seeing from some of the Ivy League schools where they're having placement problems. I appreciate the Biden administration want to call these schools out for their exorbitant prices, but it's not going to be. It's like telling the oil companies they got to lower their prices.
Look, I hear you. But what do you think about $100,000 a year for tuition? I mean, that's a whole lot. And that eliminates just about everybody in the world.
Well, it's absolutely insane, but it's by design to be insane. Mm-hmm. One of the things that's not being discussed in this conversation is the lack of quality education in the grade school and high school level. And I mean, until we figure out how to resolve that, and until we understand what the word public means, not supporting private institutions, I don't know if we ever will, because quality teachers are going to probably prefer to go into where they have smaller class sizes.
Amen. I hear you, Jeff. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-9278. Joining attorney Robert Patillo and attorney Aaron Connolly and attorney C.K. Hoffler, coming off of one of her pilots, and of course, pilot for a television show. Can't wait to see it. And then, of course, she is on Court TV. Before I get to you, attorney C.K. Hoffler, attorney Darrell Jones, what do you make of what happened yesterday? I mean, is it a campaign promise fulfilled, or is it a dream deferred? Some people are saying, you know what, this is nice, but this might dent my college debt by $100 a month. That's not really going to help me. What do you think?
Well, Santita, good morning, and you're absolutely right. It is a fulfilled campaign promise, but let's be clear. Just because there's a filled campaign promise does not mean that it cannot also be a dream deferred. Because, what President Biden campaigned on, right, was one of his issues, was making education affordable and trying to do things for everyone that are not the wealthiest of people, that would be able to have the opportunity to achieve a quality education. And this is a step, I believe, in that direction. One of the things that we know in rolling out, the plan that they've rolled out with the $20,000 for the Pell Grant and $10,000 for the other loans, is that African Americans are 2 times more likely to have those Pell Grants. So that's one of the places where he's pushing. And we got to remember that, during the campaign, the promise was, particularly to young Americans, that they were going to address many of the debt forgiveness issues, address many of the education cost issues. And this is what that's doing. So, for people that want to take a shot and say, well, this is nothing but political pandering, well, they told you in the beginning, before they were elected, that this is what they were going to focus on and this is what they're going to do. The folks that came out and supported him because of what he said he's going to do, and now he's doing what he told everybody he was going to do. So I see it as a win-win. I think that our country works better when those that have access to education are increased, so that everyone's experience, everyone's thoughts, everyone's abilities are fed by the educational system. And I think that this is what that opens that to. This is that beginning step of opening it up. And I believe that, as we go down this road and we make education affordable, more affordable, and accessible to more Americans, we're going to have greater diversity with regards to our intellectual abilities and their ability to develop the thoughts and to develop the minds. That's what I think builds a greater workforce, builds a greater country. And I just think this is just a great step for all parties involved in the direction that we should be going. We know that Black college graduates owe $7,400 more or something like that than average than the white college graduates. So all of this is a step in that direction to try to correct some of those things that are there and to make the education experience more attainable and accessible for more Americans. And I think that once that becomes in place, once you make education more accessible and attainable, that the entire level of our educated country increases. I don't see that as a bad thing. I only see that as a positive. And it just behooves me when I hear, I think it was Patrick that was calling in and bemoaning the fact, saying that this was a political thing. Well, political or not political, if the end result is it lifts our country higher, it lifts our base of workers and our skilled workers even higher, I think that's a positive, and that's what we want to do, and that's what I think I see. I know that's what I see happening with regards to the program that now has been introduced.
Well, I hear you. Well, CK, before I go to the callers, what do you think? I mean, you've got one son in college, another son who's on his way, one tuition at one time is a whole lot, but 2 Fortunately, they've got scholarships, but even then, I mean, they worked very hard during these scholarships that they've got. I just see us not in this pushback on. I want to give money to Ukraine. You know, when people are in need. Okay, I'm with it. I'm not mad. But it's just almost as if foreign aid is sacrosanct. But when you want to take care of American young people and American people who want to be educated, whatever their ages, there's all this hue and cry. That's crazy. Where did these 80 million votes come from? Okay, people thought they were going to get their loans forgiven. CK.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Santita, I tend to agree 100% with what Daryl said. I loved how he laid it out. But I think this is the first step. This isn't going to be the last step, I hope, but it will be the first step. And this is making good, or at least going in the direction on a campaign promise. And a lot of those young people did vote, and not so young people did vote because for Biden, because they really, it resonated with them that they could have their student debt extinguished to some degree. Because at this point, it hadn't been. Other presidents did not do that. So that resonated with a lot of people. So is it political? Everything's political. Every single thing that's done is political. So people saying, well, this is political design too. That doesn't bother me at all because everything that everyone does in the public life, politicians and the like, they're doing it for political reasons.
So was the Wall Street bailout, CK? That was political. Right. I mean, how do you come to the Speaker of the House and say, if you don't give me $770 billion, by close of business today, Goldman Sachs is going to close down the economy. Are you for real?
Right. And by the way, it's capitulated. So how about that? So everything to me is political. So I don't even, the political, this is political, this is driven. That doesn't resonate with me because if we do that, then we'd have to really examine every single thing that's done in this country at the time. And we're in a political season. The key is, are we really going to help people who need help? And the answer is yes. This is a good development. I am somewhat biased because of the fact that I do think that this is going to help Black students in particular, because of the Pell Grant, or anyone who benefits from the Pell Grant. But I do think that this is a step in the right direction. It's a good thing. We should applaud it when there's something good happening and not be so critical. But I do think it's step one. Can we go further? Yes, but it's step one. You have to do something. But I think it's a good step. I think it's a positive step. And to those naysayers, I think that's just sour grapes. And I think people should embrace positive steps. If people feel it hasn't gone far enough, okay. If it's only going to make a difference, I think Robert Patillo said it's going to make a difference of about $100 for him. Well, that's $100 more that you didn't have, and hopefully you will have more in the future in terms of your ability to have student debt forgiveness. Because step one can lead to step two, and I do understand that some people don't feel that it went far enough, but I think that we have to look at this as a positive development and not a negative development. And Santita, you're absolutely right. When it comes to foreign aid and other things, people don't really have the same level of intensity with their criticism. But
it's not even allowed, CK. It's not allowed.
Because
it's crazy.
It's almost a forbidden thing. It's a forbidden word to talk about that. So I just think we need to stop being intellectually hypocritical. This is a positive development. And I'm not blaming anyone for having negative views, but let's just go with the positivity and see where it leads. There's nothing bad in forgiving some student debt. Nothing bad will come from that. The only question is, can we go further with it? That's the only question. And this isn't about the economy, it's going to impact the economy. That is just intellectually hypocritical.
Well, corporate greed impacts the economy because that's the reason we're in the fix that we're in right now. Come on.
Yeah.
Blaming workers? I mean, this is ridiculous. Natalie from Chicago, what's on your mind today?
Good morning, Santita. I haven't talked to you in a long time.
It's been a minute. Wonderful hearing your voice.
The same. And let me start off by saying this. How dare these young people, unlike us, they wanted something for their vote. So I think it's a great thing, victory for them. And let me also say, if you're white and Asian, you get all your debt wiped out. That's a great thing. For Black people, I guess baby steps. So baby steps. But like you say, get it in the context of everything else that's going on. I would like to see a little bit more. As a matter of fact, I think I would have been more. I think it should have been tiers based on how much that you owe, and I think that may have balanced the scale a little bit more. Because for Black people, just only going to make a bit, or maybe have, when you consider we have 50,000 on average, 50,000, which means that some of us have much, much more. But again, baby steps, right?
Well, baby steps, but we take baby steps because that's what we accept. The fact is, people are hurting out here. Folks can't send their kids to college. On paper, my parents could afford to send everybody to school. But you know what? Do you know what kind of relief my parents got when they didn't have to pay a dime for me to go to school? And do you know how proud I was? Do you know how hard I worked to make that happen? And you know what? I want everybody else to have that opportunity. Howard University's tuition is like 4 or 5 times what it was when I was in school there more than almost 40 years ago. It's ridiculous.
And I have a medical professional, and so this is not even going to, make a dent in that loan. But like I said, for some of us, it's a baby step. It's a first step.
Mm-hmm.
But I just, like I said, but when you look at everything else, like you said, with the relief for for Ukraine, and when you have immigrants being put up in hotels, and when you look at all of that, it's kind of hard to put that in the back of your mind.
Oh, girl, I'm not putting it in the back of my mind. President Zelensky said he wanted $2 billion a month. I'm like, really? I said, and then we gave him $10 billion above that. I said, really? And then you would begrudge an American child an education? You have got to be joking me. That's not working for me. No. We're going to talk with Dr. Max Wolf, Natalie. What about the utility bills? 20 million more Americans are getting shut-offs. What you think about that?
It's a lot. That's what I'm saying. When you look at it in context, but you don't want to take away his victory lap. But, for us, we're so used to not getting anything that's crumb.
And you know what? Let me tell you something, girl. I'm not going to get used to that. I'm never going to get used to that. I'm never going to get used to that. Because you know what? I am somebody. And I deserve to be respected and protected. I'm not going to get used to that. And I don't want you to get used to it either. If you're going to pay off the debts of Wall Street, they have $20 trillion plus offshore right now. Then you ought to take care of the debts of Americans, particularly folks who want to go to school, be it academic or vocational. That is what needs to happen. If you want America to thrive and survive, if you don't want us to be slaves, then you need to educate people. And you know what? I'm not going to depend upon the oligarchs to do it. We're the new monarchy, the people. We need to do it. Make them do it.
We have to, like I said, I did express that I sent the White House.
That's right.
I feel like, everybody should have their dinner.
We gotta wrap it up.
Mm-hmm. When we all rise, so...
Well, stay right here and talk with us during the break. Stay right here. I know Natalie, I know everybody wants to say something to you. Let's talk about all of this. 20 million more Americans are looking at utility shutoffs. A woman in Detroit had a quarter of her check garnished because of unpaid. She can't pay her utilities. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Whew. Oh. Too much. Sandra, really? That's right. So everybody, you all want to talk to Miss Natalie from Chicago?
Where facts matter.
Good morning, Miss Natalie.
This is Congressman Mike Quigley.
Good morning.
The Supreme
She's up.
Good morning.
Will cost lives.
Girl, keep talking. You were talking to me. You can talk. You can talk.
You make you know what point? You make the excellent point. One thing I will say is, did it go far enough? We need to go further, but it's a first step, and we haven't seen the president take that first step.
Gun violence.
So I think we just have to keep on pushing. That's how I look at it.
I think you're right. And, but we have to continue to push the conversation, because if you try to take the next step, people will try to prevent you from taking that step. Because haven't I given you enough? No, you haven't. No.
No, you have, because when you consider that we're 62% income is 62% less than white. We're 3 times more likely to be poor than white. So when you take all that into consideration, that we have to mortgage, get a second mortgage on our homes in order to send our kids to school. And they're pushing us further into debt.
I mean,
that's my fault. We have like a thing with the phones where I just put Dr. Wolf on and Natalie's call thing was highlighted, so it dropped her by accident.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
But Dr. Wolf is on.
Okay, Dr. Wolf.
Good morning.
Good morning. We've been talking about student loan debt. I've got, of course, attorney Robert Patillo, who you know, and attorney Daryl Jones, and attorney C.K. Hoffler, and attorney Aaron Connolly, who is about to send a daughter to college. Woo! God bless you. C.K.'s got a daughter in college. Yay, son in college. Woo!
Stevenson an hour.
It's too expensive. It's ridiculous.
By the way, college tuitions have been going up at more than the rate of inflation that caused all the social concern, but for 35 years. So the rate of general inflation that got so much concern got no concern, or very little, not enough, but very little, when it was the college and the medical cost rate of inflation for the past 3 or 4 decades.
Well, now, why are we paying professors like you all this money? Wait a minute, everybody, y'all can jump on Max now.
No, actually, we get paid less than we did 30 years ago.
It's 69.
Part of it's health insurance, though, to be honest. But on a more serious note, part of it is the health insurance that comes with the university.
In Memphis, Tennessee.
And from universities, which presently pay retired people more to not teach anymore than they pay the younger ones to teach. And if you were ever taught by those guys, it does make sense to pay them to stop teaching. But it probably makes more sense to pay the people who are in the classroom still teaching to do their jobs. And yeah,
union busting is when
it's an industry that's not in good shape. Actually, so is healthcare.
Despite it being illegal, it is sadly
1 minute
in the workplace. From President Ronald
Well, we're talking about these utility bills, but if there is a question that someone had for you, Dr. Wolf, about student loan debt forgiveness, would you mind answering that question?
Sure.
Thank you.
Did you get? If you send me an email, I missed it, or kind of.
Which is
are they going to ask me now, or do you already have the question?
I already have the question. Does this cover Parent Plus loans?
WCPT, Moment in Labor. We are working for
30 seconds.
I guess what they're talking about is the new rules, or
the new rules.
Are you among the many folks who have lost their jobs, or if you've been furloughed, or working from home at a reduced
it's the federal loan that is covered. But the problem for a lot of people is they have to use private loan.
20 seconds.
And if you have private loan, then that's outside the system, right?
And lower your monthly payments.
Well, we're going to come right to you.
We can help.
Okay.
Okay.
800-707-1097. That's 800.
And then just to let you know, Daryl Jones he left.
Oh, yeah, no, he just sent me a text.
Okay. All right, we're coming back.
Thank you so much. Everybody stay right here.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am green.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Of course, it is now time to talk with Dr. Max Wolf. Of course, we've got attorney C.K. Hoffler, attorney Aaron Connolly, and attorney Robert Patillo still with us as we've been talking about student loan debt forgiveness. A lot of people have a lot of questions. Chapeau reached out on social media. She said, okay, does this cover Parent Plus loans, this forgiveness, as we expand the conversation? Because it seems like we're talking about debt, Dr. Wolf. As we look at 20 million more Americans who are looking at falling behind on their utility bills and looking at having shutoffs.
Who already have fallen.
Oh, it's awful. What about the Parent Plus loans, which really pushed a lot of Black college kids in particular out of college? We saw, no one ever thought, CK, that you'd see, or Robert. Oh, because that's you, Robert, you were down there. Were you at Clark? You were in the whole AU complex, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Who would have thought that we would see dorms at Morehouse closed? At Morehouse, where Dr. King went to school. I mean, where Maynard Jackson went to school. I mean, really? Oh my, So what about the Parent Plus loans? Are they covered in this proposal? I mean, that people are saying that now it's going to face an onslaught of lawsuits?
Yeah, I'm not sure about this. There's always sort of naysayers on these things, but this is kind of been discussed for a long time. So the details were not known, but this is coming a long time, and opponents of it who either just oppose it outright for some reason to do with their own business model, or who get high and mighty on it for some reason or another. They kind of always say they're going to oppose these, but historically they don't successfully oppose them that often. And there's also conversation about another sort of leg in this program to come out closer to the general as opposed to the midterm. So in the next 2 years, so I think there's at least as much chance there's more to come as less. So what these rules do, because these are executive actions by the White House, by the federal government, is they cover loans that are part of federal student aid, right? Federal student loans. And a lot of kids end up with loans. So the best deals, the most forgiveness, the best rates often are on federal student loans, which are basically ways the U.S. government loans money to students or to parents to pay for students, hence the Parent Plus loans, to go get further training or education, right? But there's lots of private student loans. A lot of people have a combination because most people find that the best way to do this is to max out what they can get from the federal, and then in many cases, college and graduate school exceeds that, right? So their savings isn't enough, where savings and federal student loans pay for everything. So then they add this layer of private loans. And those, not always, but sometimes can be quite predatory or complicated. Those are not governed by executive action. Those are really not in this conversation and the rule change. What is federal student loans. So Parent Plus loans are kind of federal student aid, direct ones, that can be gotten by parents if their kids are dependent, right, not adults with their own careers and incomes, to help them go to school. Those are covered under this, and there's a lot of relief actually here. So maybe less than some had hoped, but a fair amount. So that's very good news. There are also marketed to people things called Parent Plus, this and that, usually with another word in there, which are private, and those are not covered by this, right? And that's where this gets a little bit complicated, because when you hear these rules, people tend to think it just applies to all student debt, but it actually applies to the federal government, the insured or put out by the federal government, sometimes some state programs. But it doesn't apply to this world of private for-profit student lending, which exists as well.
Is this automatic?
I don't know if that's helpful.
Well, no, it is helpful. I mean, I understand that the Department of Education, for some people, this is automatic because the Department of Education has been monitoring the incomes of millions of Americans. But is this automatic, or is there a process? Do you have to apply for this forgiveness?
I think you apply.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think you apply. I mean, I think there's a little bit of the final rule still coming out. So, there are announcements that are less than 24 hours old at this point. Also, I think the headline is the bigger story here. So I think this is actually a lot more generous and a lot more targeted toward low and medium income households than the headlines would have you believe. Because it also redefines what is your discretionary income and caps how much, again, of the federal student loan burden can hit you. So it used to be 10% of your discretionary income. Now it's 5% of a discretionary income definition that's narrower. So actually, basically, the biggest thing they did here is say you're not going to go broke on your federal student loan. It's easier to get them forgiven after 10 years of payment. Obviously, you have to have a good payment history, but 10 years of a good payment history. And instead of taking up to 10% of your very generously described, generous to what you have to pay, discretionary income,
It's actually 5%, which is half as much of a more narrowly defined discretionary income. So actually, basically, you're not going to go broke or spend your whole life paying back your federal student loan. That's a bigger deal to a lot of people who have a lot of debt than the 10 or 20,000. And it also, if you were a low income at the time of going to school, or now, if you're getting the loans now, potentially, you take a different kind of loan often, and that has $20,000 of forgivability. So if you're a lower income person,
does this only apply to federal? Is this for federal programs or private programs, or both?
Federal.
Federal. Okay.
So a lot of people end up with all kinds of other debt they consider student debt, right? So the $20,000 credit card balance that they ran up, reasonably paying for just necessities in college or stuff like that, sort of makes sense if they're student borrowing or whatever, right? I mean, it's not a federal student loan, so it doesn't fall into that. Right? The good news is most of the people who have those private loans, which cause trouble, also get those having maxed out the public loans. So, I mean, your indebtedness is a single thing, right? So if you have a more generous set of rules and less debt in one area, it does help you overall, right? So it's not only there. But yeah, if you borrowed $40,000 from Citibank in loans and credit card to go to college, it might have been a good deal, or go to grad school. Like, these rule changes don't affect that.
You know what? I still have callers calling in about this. Do you mind taking them, Dr. Wolf?
Sure. I mean, I'm not a full-on expert here, and there are some variations from different state loans that people should keep in mind, and variations in the federal loans, which I am probably not fully knowledgeable regarding.
Well, but that's fine. I think that people.
I will obviously tell you when I don't know.
Well, you will say, I don't know. I'll find out. But the great thing is, Attorney Hoffler and Attorney Connolly and Attorney Patillo. Well, let me ask Attorney Patillo. We haven't heard from you for a minute. Why don't you react to what you've been hearing? I mean, how will this impact you? Let me first ask you how this will impact you, because you have a lot of debt. Yes.
Well, on the bright side, it'll allow me to continue working at Rainbow Push, which is a good thing, because if those bills that came back full force, unfortunately, I think this is the case for many people, that you can't afford to work in civil rights and pay back your student loans from law school. You can't afford to work in public service. You can't afford to be a public defender or work for nonprofit organizations. It's just the salary will never be able to keep up. I know people like to think, oh, you go and get all these fancy degrees and then you immediately, become Scrooge McDuck. But that's just simply put not the way that it works. So I think every attorney on the call will be able to attest to that. And that if we want more people working in some of these fields that are the most needed, we have to have reforms like this and going even further. And I also think that people have to remember what the alternative is. Everybody who probably has a degree right now remembers going to school for a couple girls who were strippers in college, for example. Is that really the morality we want to set in America, where instead of simply paying off student loan debt, we force people into the alternative economy? We force guys to sell weed out their dorm room in order to buy books. We force people to, as Angela Davis said, enter the secondary of the alternative economy in order to pay these things off. There was a few years ago a story at Duke University. One of the young students, Bella Knox, had started doing porn. It was a big scandal on campus, and she did an interview saying, I'm going to graduate debt-free from Duke University, and this is what it takes. My family doesn't come from means. This is what we have to do. So for these high-minded conservative arguments about the morality of the entire thing, you have to look at what people need to do to escape generational curses and be able to hop on that ephemeral causeway that education is. My dad was born in 1932 in Waverly Hall, Georgia. Never graduated from, got out of 8th grade. My mom was born in Haiti during the reign of Papa Doc Duvalier. Nothing in my family history said that I should be a civil rights attorney talking on the radio to unite people. But it was because of putting your head down and getting scholarships and going to college, but also a ton of student loan debt to get you to that place. So when I hear these conservatives saying, well, this is unfair, this entire program, this entire debt forgiveness program is going to cost about $300 billion. Our military budget for this year is $800 $113 billion. If you're saying that the entire educational system of America, the higher educational system, is worth less than half of what the military budget is for 1 year to bomb and dominate the world, then that shows the true values and morality that you have, because we don't have these types of arguments and conversations when it comes to buying a new Gerald Ford class aircraft carrier, buying a new B-2 stealth bomber or F-35 joint strike fighter. These aren't the conversations that we have when it's time to bomb Syria, as we did earlier this weekend, and didn't even make a blip on the American radar. What we're really doing is, this is the upper and ruling classes of America telling the lower classes, you stay down there. We don't want you competing with our children. We don't want you having the same education. Your job is to serve us, and anything that we do to help you inflates the economy. But anytime you get $2 trillion in tax cuts for us, that's just economic stimulus.
Wow. Pet Granny says, I can't retire because of debt. Facebook user says the next push should be to eliminate student loan debt interest accrued. Her debt has been paid twice. She said, but her interest is 3 times that amount. I mean, Max, people are really struggling out here.
It's hard to know the calculation there, but I think the student loan debt discussion is a good one. But I would bring up something else, which is, again, not to say that we are always less good, or many places we're the leader for sure, but look, the rest of the developed world sends fewer people to college. That's a big problem. But they send those people to college and they don't leave with debt. And they have some very good universities, as many maybe universities as we have in most cases. But I think debt is not the only way to send kids to college. Right? So I think we've gone further than we should have with debt and less far than we should have with subsidies. Right? So I think a really big expansion of the number of scholarships available and a rapid discharge of student loan debt to move people into areas of need is a good social investment. And I think if you do it right, it doesn't cost very much. Right? So I think if you work in an area that has a shortage of something, a rural area or a low-income area that has a shortage of something, we can double the rate of your student loan repayment, or charge-off. I think also the student loan interest rates should probably be about the lowest. They should be probably set at a very low rate. They often are, but they're not always, and so that would probably be a good idea. But I think that debt took over from the role of subsidizing education. And the reason we historically subsidized education is not the reason the debate. So the debate now is wholly unhinged, right, left, and center. You subsidize educating people in your country because it makes your economy bigger and stronger. That has never been more true. So even the Army, the joke about the Army, and the military knows this very well. They're very smart about it. Politicians are not always very smart about it, but the DOD knows this very well. The battlefield of tomorrow, the battlefield of today and tomorrow is technology. And if you don't have enough people trained in enough good schools to develop the best technology, you simply become irrelevant. And or you vastly underperform militarily. And lest we lose sight of that, that story is being written in blood every day in the Ukraine. But high-tech education is the battlefield of today and most certainly of tomorrow. And there's a major relationship. Almost every major military technology that gives the United States a battlefield advantage was federally subsidized and developed in America's public universities and sometimes private universities with grant money. We invested in education to have battlefield superiority.
And so with the vaccines.
If we do not.
I mean,
Yeah, same with lots of things, right? So, like, the point is, all we're doing is asking middle-class and lower-middle-class kids. And the reason I'm not saying poor kids is because they don't go to college. And when they do, they tend to go to community colleges, which is much cheaper. I'm not forgetting about them. I just know the math, right? We're asking lower-middle-class and middle-class kids to pay more for school so that we can give tax cuts, mostly to higher-income people and companies. That's a social decision. But it is not done. I would not see that debate, although I understand why people do. It is not done for the economy. It is done to transfer wealth upward. It is not good for the economy. I mean, there is no economic study that says it's good for the economy. It's not. It sucks for the economy. It is not good for growth.
It is not good for overall economic competitiveness. It does not give us a bigger economy. It does not give us a more dynamic economy. It gives us a smaller, less dynamic economy, right? So it reduces the overall robustness of the ability of the United States to compete and produce wealth. It does upward redistribute wealth. But I would not feed the argument to those who think it is a bad investment. It is most certainly a very good investment. And the United States rose to economic dominance over a 100-year period by out-investing in public education and public infrastructure as against other countries. And we lost some of our dominance by underinvesting in our middle class, our public education, and our infrastructure. Full stop. So those decisions should never be seen as we do this because we believe in it, even though it's bad for the economy. Yeah, we believe in it, okay? And that should be a good test, but it is unambiguously good for the economy. And our major competitor nations in Europe and Northeast Asia are investing a lot in their educational infrastructure and their physical infrastructure. And it's working, and it's giving them the edge on us. So let's just say it what it is, right? This is an upward wealth redistribution. This is not about what's economically efficient. It's just not. It doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. It's not even controversial. Most things are controversial. Lots of things we don't really know in economics. This one's not even controversial.
Paul from Seattle. Paul, what's on your mind?
Yes, good morning. I would like to just offer this, that the high cost of college education, as it has become over the last 40 years, has been stealthily hidden in the skyrocketing cost of healthcare. And I'll tell you how. Because the state, whatever state you live in, which are responsible for funding the state colleges and universities, are also the largest employer in the state. And they have to pay for the employees' health care benefits, because we still have private insurance in this company or in this country. And what happens is state legislatures, especially in the red states, are dying just to cut taxes. Just look all around Illinois. They want to cut state taxes. And so where the slack comes out of is subsidizing the colleges and universities. And so they say, if you want to go to college, more and more of that share has been left up to the student who wants to go. When I started at Michigan State University in the 1970s, a credit was $16 an hour. 15 credits was $240, and I remember the dorm fee was the same. I was out of there for first fall quarter with under $500, and I worked a part-time job making $4 an hour and paid for it all, working 20 hours a week. You do the math. I was walking away with paid off my tuition and had money left over to spend. That's how I made it through school. And because I remember when I left Michigan State, even back in the late 80s, because I stayed for a while, the tuition had been just skyrocketed. And it's not because the cost, what the agenda is on the right wing is to, make sure that poor people can't go to college, and also to make sure that the state colleges are damn nearly as expensive as private schools, where they can have whatever agenda they want. And as your guest said, some of these private loans, by the way, a college like Hillsdale College does not accept federal student loans. They don't accept them. They won't let you have them if you go there. Hillsdale College is very, very conservative. They don't take it because if you take those loans, you're subject to federal equal protection regulations, and they don't want to be. So the reason that everything's gotten so high is because the state legislatures have dropped out of supporting the colleges and universities in their state. So my plan would be this, to offer the federal government should step in and say, we will pay to the states, that we will match funds. However much your state wants to increase taxes to make your colleges cheaper, we'll match them. So if a state wants to increase their taxes such that it will meet 50% of the student burden, the federal government can come in and meet the rest of it. And therefore, in that state where they're willing to raise their state taxes, they will have essentially free college. Now, isn't that a brilliant plan? Because we have to go forward with, if you cut all the student debt now, what happens to the people who are starting college tomorrow? It's starting in September. They don't. We got to cut theirs too. I mean, we don't have a plan for going forward. That's the problem with just cutting, saying debt forgiveness right now doesn't help the next person that's step it up. We need to protect them too.
Well, the country itself, I think we have to be honest, Max, because I want to get closing thoughts from everybody. If you don't mind, if you could stay with me until after the top. Everybody stay with me on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Look, this country was always about minority rule. Only white propertied men were empowered with the right to vote. It was never about sending everybody to college. No, that's not the way we started. But the way we started, Max, is not the way we need to end up. Okay? I mean, I'm clear on how we started. We started in slavery, stealing land, all of that. But that's where we started. We should have evolved. Now, I mean, I just don't think, whatever your parents' income, that you should be indebted. I think that, education is something, it just ought to be a right. And it's not. When my brother was in Congress, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., crafted an amendment to the Constitution. You remember this, CK. Equal access to equal high quality education. Very quickly, CK, will you be on Court TV today?
Good morning, Santita. I will not be on Court TV today. I am going to be. No, I know, but I am working on a pilot, and so we are in production discussions and things of that nature. So I will not be on Court TV today.
When will we be able to see the pilot?
Well, it's going to take some time to film and to edit and all that kind of stuff. So I think they're believing it'll take about 3 months to complete. But I will share the details when I have them.
Yay! 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 I've got about a minute and a half for you. Stay right there, because I want to get some closing thoughts from you and Robert and Aaron, of course, Dr. Wolf. Dr. Wolf, this last minute belongs to you. We couldn't even get to these soaring electricity prices and these 20 million more American households that are falling behind on the utility bills, looking at shutoffs. But we're still, it seems like debt's at the center of everything. Why do you think that this discussion about student loan forgiveness it invokes so much emotion, or evokes so much emotion and invokes it? Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think we've managed a lot of sort of exploding social problems with debt for 20, 30, 40 years. And as tends to happen with debt, the numbers accumulate until you reach various crisis points, right? And so the way we sort of did it is we kept Americans getting most of the things that we emblematically think you get when you're middle class: some chance to retire, go on a vacation, send your kids to college or go to college if it's the family, own a vehicle, buy a new vehicle. And those things stopped being affordable to people because the wages didn't go up much, started from the 80s. But we got pretty creative at finding ways for people to borrow to buy the things they need and want. And there's need as well as want in there. It sort of fills the gaps. You borrow more and more to buy a house. You borrow more and more to buy a car. You still owe money on your last car when you buy your next car, right? You borrow on your credit cards. You borrow on a home equity line of credit. You borrow to go to school. But if you think about it, we're borrowing back the money that's not being made available to make these things affordable. And what that strangely does is it accelerates the upward wealth redistribution, because we cut the taxes so wealthy people have more money.
Minute and a half.
When people borrow the money and then they have to pay it back with interest. And having to pay it back with interest accelerates the degree to which you upward redistribute wealth, because those wealthy people use the tax cuts, loan it to the poor people who don't get the services, and then they have to pay it back with interest. So debt is at the heart of the upward redistribution of wealth, and it shows up where it's used to substitute for middle-class families to buy the things that they think are middle-class birthrights, but may have moved outside of the realm of affordability.
Stay right here, everybody. Going to get some closing thoughts from this magnificent panel on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278. That's tomorrow. I can't take any more calls right now, but I'll be with you tomorrow. We're going to be talking about slavery, CK and Aaron. And if you want to jump in, Dr. Wolf, it's on the ballot, Robert Patillo, in the fall. That's right. In several states, we will be voting on whether or not we should have slavery. You can't make this stuff up. Can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. God bless you, everybody. Aaron, what do you think?
This is
I mean, you're someone who has to struggle with getting your insulin
non-union roofer
from month to
looking
month.
for a safer work site.
Yeah.
When you talk about the impacts of healthcare and student loan combined, right? Like, I'm thinking of those folks where President Biden did expand the eligibility for folks with disabilities. But when I entered law school, I didn't have diabetes. It's something I got probably partially because of law school, right? And so I'm heartened by some of those steps he's taken, and hopefully there will be more steps to take into account students with disabilities that have had extremely changed circumstances. Again, I'm very lucky in that I'm still able to work and contribute financially in ways, but at the same time, a lot of people cannot and have those changed circumstances. So additionally, we have to look at these systems, as Dr. Wolf said. The systems are broken. The debt system, the healthcare system that puts people into debt and still creates a haves and have-nots in our country. It's all connected. And I hope that this discussion, we can move past the initial phase one opening of the door and talk about these policies moving forward. We don't have a plan for this. We don't have a plan for the students that start college next week. We don't have a plan for the students that are applying to college for next year. And we have to acknowledge that this system isn't working, that the way we've done things is not the way, that we can do better, we can innovate, and we have to take away some of our assumptions. And the idea that others have to suffer the same way we did
is that
just
crazy?
Ridiculous. I to have it exponentially better than I did. It should be easier. It should make more sense. It should be empowering. I don't care what I had to go through. Make it better for somebody else. I do not understand this argument. So I hope we can come to a place where everyone sees that there is a dire need to make change.
Oh, dentistry doesn't have to hurt you guys, okay? We move on.
Killing 19 students and 2 teachers.
I don't know what else to tell you. You know, you're not supposed to die when you get a tooth yanked. Sorry, or get a filling. It's not supposed to hurt anymore, really.
I support the Supreme Court. I believe we should be originalists when it comes to personal hygiene.
Oh, you know what? Don't pay any attention. You see,
assume that founding fathers were up to.
And I want you to know, we have the wrong two people on today. I have you and CK who make some sense. Robert and Max are nuts. But yes.
I also think the Supreme Court should emulate the original expectancy.
I just wanted to clarify because I didn't know if there was some interruption. You know, some type of interruption. Did you say personal hygiene?
Absolutely, madam. I think it's high time. I also, it's totally unrelated, but I also have a large business selling wooden cheese.
Did you take them from your slaves? Wait. Because that is what George Washington did. He took the teeth from his enslaved workers' mouths and put them in his own head. You can't make this up.
That's a great entrepreneurial idea. We can consult them. We can discuss an equity arrangement. But unfortunately, the nanny state won't allow me to let people freely exercise their right to sell themselves into a denture because of the risks and limitations on freedom. The same reason my totally reasonable desire to get a fighter aircraft has been stymied by the nanny state. This is holding me back. It's hard to imagine being free without your own fighter jet, at least for some of us who love freedom. Hey, look, the fighter jet argument's better than you think, because a lot of people running around out there, they need a rifle because they believe with a personal sidearm, they're going to keep the U.S. military at bay. At least in my theory, you need a modern Air Force because it seems to be more decisive in the wars we've had, say, since the 1920s than the sidearm.
Wow. Well, Santita, I'm going to have to run. I have a meeting.
Yes.
But I want to say this has been delightful. And I just wanted to, in my closing thoughts, I just wanted to say we need to keep the dialogue. Keep the dialogue. This is an opening. This is a start. I think it's positive. I'm soon going to have 2 kids in college. And, simply because your kids have scholarships The scholarships come and the scholarships go. And you have to be prepared as a parent to step in because you refuse to be denied when it comes to the education of your children. And when that happens, it impacts all of us. This impacts all of us. So I hope that people will forget about this. It's political. Everything's political. And this is something that this is an investment in our future by extinguishing debt, because you extinguish the debt of some, and some of these people are parents, they're able to afford more for their children. They're sending their kids to school. It's all related. This is step one. And I think people need to realize that. And how about pushing for step 2 and step 3 and step 4 so that there is a concrete plan for those coming into college today? Because colleges, there are a few things that are constant. We know that the football industry, college football industry, is still $1 billion trillion industry. We know that. We know college basketball, that's still a billion and trillion dollar industry. So I think that we have to watch these colleges very closely, support the students so that they can be well educated, and support those who have gone through the process so that they could extinguish their debt. So, I think it's a long discussion, but this is step one. And I don't think that we should try to abolish step 1 before we get to more significant steps that can address the woefully inadequate education that some of our children are getting today.
Robert Patillo? Is Robert still there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I have to hop off on this also, but I think that we have to keep the pressure up because we see what's the pressure coming from conservative media. They're using the same old talking points. This is socialism. This is the nanny state. This is a big government giveaway. This will drive up inflation. Will drive up the deficit. They'll drive up the debt. This is being pawned off on our grandchildren. What about the balanced budget? All those things you've not heard a word about in the last 4 or 5 years, because when Republicans get in office, all that stuff goes out the window. The only time that those things matter is when you're doing something for folks who ain't got something. But when you're doing things for people at the top of the economy, they talk about it as being economic stimulus. They talk about it as being an investment in the economy, job creators this, job creators that. You need to loosen up the market, take away regulations, give us the opportunity to innovate in the free market, so on and so forth. Understand the hustle. They've been running the same game plan for years, and I'm glad that the president stood up to it. But I think Democrats have to mention this as being step 1. This is what the president can do without having the Congress. If you give us the United States Senate, we can take you all the way across the line. And if you think the 10K is good now, imagine what we can do when we will have the gavel in the hands of Nancy Pelosi, where we'll have a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, and we'll be able to push through the types of bold progressive agenda items that we need. I think that that's the Cassia Belli the Democrats can use going forward. So keep the pressure up. This is one of those times, I think we spend a large amount of time criticizing the Biden administration, but this might be one of those times we have to support the Biden administration where they're doing something right, but also use this same rubric, use this same playbook on voting rights, criminal justice reform. Now we see how it needs to be done, the coalition that we have to build, and it's simply a matter of putting that into action.
Amen to that. What do you have to say, Aaron, before we get to Dr. Wolf and skedaddle? Did Aaron have to go? She might have. Well, what do you think about all of this? I mean, it seems, Max, that this is all coming down to debt. Not all of it, but Americans are barely keeping our heads above water. But when you turn on corporate media, it's all my fault. If I wouldn't spend so much money, spend what money? To do what? If I wouldn't. They never say this about corporations. No one's talking about corporate greed and the role that it is playing in creating and driving inflation. No one's talking about this. And when you're talking about something, just a little bit of forgiveness, just a little bit for people who will contribute to the society. People are not marrying, having children. Socially, this is unsustainable to have people in this kind of debt. Max?
Yeah, look, I think when we try individual solutions for social problems, things often go in a strange and unproductive direction. In other words,
if we want to spend, and if we need to spend, and if our economy relies on us spending a very significant portion of young men and young women to college for either associate's degrees, BAs, BS and BA degrees, or more, master's and doctoral degrees, such law and medical, then we have to make it so that they can do that without decades of penury. And we haven't. So we've decided to give them debt, right? And why those costs have gone up are many. That was mentioned, by myself, by others, right? So there is this medical cost. There is the kind of retirement cost of some of the staff of some of these institutions. Generally, the staff of these institutions, and I should say that I do work for one part-time, are not paid well. The staff salaries for the university people, the people who work at universities and college campuses have not kept up with inflation. Mm-hmm. So it's not generally salary-driven, right? It's cost and cost the subsidy. And the medical costs are a very big piece of it for the retired and present staff. That's correct. You brought it up earlier, and I think one of the callers brought it up too. So certainly an issue. But yeah, the debt is, if you want to say to tell people roll the dice with a guaranteed debt load and no guaranteed job. Here's the other place that I think we don't talk about. Our economic lives in this country have become much less certain. We have more frequent, larger economic dislocations, right? And so if everyone's rolling the dice every day that they'll get sick, and that even if they're insured, they'll be underinsured or not fully covered, and they'll wipe them out, or they'll lose their job and have a hard time getting it, or the economy will go through one of these violent spasms, then you have this guaranteed debt that you owe every month, but you have an economy unlikely to furnish you with an adequate income every month. So you then need to save a whole lot and do a lot of being lucky and pray. And it's hard to build an economy on people going without getting lucky and praying. Those are strange bases for a national economy, and they're not that solid, right? So they might work. They work sometimes, they work for some people, but they don't really work as an overall social plan. So I think it comes down to the same thing. And I don't know the answer, and I couldn't answer it for other people. But if we care to have an economy where people can actually go to college and get an associate's degree or a four-year college degree or more, and they often kind of competitiveness in the modern economy relies on us having that, then we need to invest more in those institutions. And I know this is a strange way to look at it, but degrees are also one of America's best products and one of our leading exports, often the sixth largest export of the United States. This is a large global business, and training the world leaders and scientists in the United States gives us immense political and intellectual and ideological power around the world, and generates a meaningfully positive trade surplus for the U.S. So you're investing in an industry to have a more competitive future, give people a chance at a proper career, and it's also one of our most dynamic, most competitive exports.
And maybe we need to start there. Because I don't think that we understand what we offer the world in terms of education, whether it's community colleges, state colleges, city colleges, private, public colleges. I don't think we really understand what we mean to the world. But I guess if you went on a campus and you saw all the people who were there, you would see it.
Yeah. I mean, the attention tends to focus on our most famous, largest, research institutions and universities that grant degrees. But our large research institutions have been the global crucible of innovation and technology development in medical care, medical devices, pharmaceuticals, computer technology, electronics, computer chips, the entire modern economy, largely more than any other single institution, came out of government subsidized research in public and private universities. And at least as importantly, our local four-year colleges and community colleges are important. I think they might be less internationally well known. They tend to be more local institutions, but they're important. And a lot of the teachers and students getting the doctorates at the research institutions start out at the community college because they're either doing that to save money or they're doing that because that's how they're entering the system. Those are on-ramps into the system, and you go as far as life and interest and talent take you. But this is part of one of the most successful government and private sector partnership elements of the U.S. economy for the last 60 years. So you're not just doing something right and wrong here. And again, my point is not to say there isn't a moral argument. There always is. My point is to say I think people who are progressive give up the practical and material argument, assuming they're wrong there, but there's a moral argument.
And sometimes that may be the case, but often it's not. Often they just give up that territory because they assume it belongs to someone on the other side of the debate. And that's strategically, I'm not sure that's a great idea.
Do you think that what the president did yesterday, and what the White House did, what the Biden administration did, do you think that is a good thing? Is it a good first step?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are millions of people who will stay home because they don't think there's anything in it for them in the midterm, or say they're voting against Joe Biden because they're going to pay $400 more for gas this year, who just got $20,000 from Joe Biden.
Okay.
And I'm puzzled by a social discussion that will talk about, some guy having a nervous breakdown because he just paid a lot more for beef jerky. But, he's voting against this devil who costs him more at the gas pump, who doesn't realize that, if a guy costs you $3,000 more dollars and then he gives you $10,000 more dollars, we call him Santa. Calm down.
Oh, I love this guy. I don't know why, but I do.
But maybe the messaging they could do a little.
Oh, they could do much better in messaging. Are you kidding me? I mean, first of all, they need to be talking to you. No, seriously. I mean, because I'm like, wait a minute. If you know what American education, what our institutions mean to the world, oh my gosh. All day long. I mean, look, I know how important HBCUs are to the world. There was a fight in the 80s to ensure that the Howard Medical School and the Howard Medical School and Dental School would be majority Black, because they were taking in students from Pakistan, from India. These folks, they wanted to become physicians. They wanted to be dentists. They wanted to be maxillofacial surgeons and all of that. And they wanted to be transplant surgeons. One of the top transplant surgeons in the world, Dr. LaFall, was at Howard's Hospital. They wanted to study with him. They wanted to work under him. So it's like, what are you doing? And what we're doing is not, it's not smart. It's not smart. The messaging is awful, Max. It's awful. And that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The message is awful.
That one of the callers brought up, which is that in a lot of states, many U.S. states, the largest two employers, certainly the largest public employers, almost every state, but the largest two employers overall in most states are now the college systems, university systems and college systems, and the prison systems. And I find it strange that we talk so much about how expensive the colleges are. Seems like the other one might be where you'd look to do some saving.
I agree.
And if you invest more in the schools, you often end up with less people incarcerated, too. If you're looking to shrink one of them, I mean, it seems like a pretty standard thing most of us would agree on, that it'd be a nicer world with more students, less inmates.
Well,
often drawn from the same population that's underserved by the schools, the inmate population as well.
I wonder where we're going to go with this. Well, I tell you what, it impacts people and their pocketbooks. So we are going to see.
Where we're going to go to the country is we're going to be reversing off the exit ramp on a highway at night with no street lamp. That's not what we're doing.
My dear friend Max, I'm going to let you go. But we didn't. It's like we never get to where we're going to do.
There's a lot of topic stuff on the table for,
But thank you. So thank you for being so flexible.
A bunch of guests and a bunch of topics. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. But I had to go with where the callers were going.
Of course.
And I know you're nimble enough, and intellectually, not only are you dexterous, but you're just brilliant. I knew that you could roll with it, but I just didn't know.
It's an interesting subject. I work in the business too, right? So sort of have a slightly different pitch, maybe, to some of the thoughts on it. But yeah, the university, obviously, I think people forget that education is big business, right? But that is part of it. It's a huge employer. It's a huge GDP contributor. And it's just sort of a huge microphone for American influence around the world, too, that trains so much of the world's leadership. At least in some areas, or not every area, but a lot of areas. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, always a pleasure. I'll look forward to catching up during the week. And best to everyone. Thanks for listening.
Oh, are you kidding? Look, I had a whole lot of questions for you today. I just couldn't get to them. Like, Dr. Wolf needs to. I should just send them to you if I could.
Yeah, you can send them through, or I can log into something on the show.
You know what? I'm going to send you the link.
You can't answer more than one at a time anyway. But yeah.
Well, I'm going to send you the link so you can start logging into, because I'm going to start doing something else, but I'll talk with you about it. And I did speak with Zaya. Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
And wonderful. She and I had a great conversation, and I'll tell you about that.
Yeah, very good.
And she's overseas right now, but we're going to connect when she gets back home.
Yeah. I think she is back now.
Okay. Well, we said we would connect, and she would let me know just how we could work together, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good, and congrats to Jonathan too.
Call him.
He's going to be the new congressperson.
Well, that's after November if he wins. But call him. I know he would love to hear from you.
Okay, I'll reach out to him today.
Yeah. Call him. If you don't reach him, send him a text. But I'll tell him that you're trying to reach out to him.
No, he told me this, right? He doesn't do voicemail. So yeah, I'll send him a text.
Honey, yeah, he does not do voicemail at all.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. So, yeah.
My brother does not. He does not. And you have to call him 10 times before you get him one time, but that's all right. I love him. He's mine.
All right. Well, it's a busy guy. I guess lots of people have opinions for you if they think you might be headed to DC, right?
You know what? He's always, he has people calling him all the time. So I don't begrudge him anything. I just call him when I reach him, and boom, that's it. People are like, oh my gosh, he didn't call me back. I'm like, honey, 50 million people tried to reach him.
I can always email him.
Yeah. Just leave.
I'll text.
Yeah, but please.
Yeah, I'll reach out to him today.
Okay.
All right, thanks for having me on the show. Talk soon. Be well.
Well, it's your segment.
Take care. Thank you very much.
All right, hon. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. I love you. I always enjoy being with you. You know what a blessing you are in my life. I love you. I love you. So we got a lot to talk about, a lot of topics. We just had to deal with this one today. So I love you. Hey, Daphne and Jewel. Hey, girl. Jewel, I think I'm going to come up with a line of jewelry. What about that? What do you think? Well, talk amongst yourselves. Let me know what you think. Love you. Hey. Oh, girl, you're sweet. Let me see. Daphne, I don't have my glasses on, girl. Oh, bless your heart. No, you wouldn't be. You just, we just try to, hey, Mark. Hey, Pet Granny, sending you much love. Hope you'll be with us tomorrow, Pet Granny. I love that. I love your handle. Love you, everybody. Keep reading, and I just want to give you all information. I don't want to tell you what to think. I just want you to think, and I want you to think. I want you to have enough information so that you can have some informed decisions. I love you, everybody. Everybody like and share this show, okay? Please like and share. Spread the word. And let's continue to increase our numbers. I love you, everybody. God bless. Bye-bye.